Yo, welcome to Music is a Day Job. I'm your host, Sean, and this is brought to you by the Concert app. The Concert app is an artist accelerator app that takes artists from opener to headliner to on tour and gives the fan the best experience in independent live music. Now, this is the last of our 4-part series. This is 1,000 fans, and we always talk about this because we talk about making $100,000, and that's how you can literally, it's just regular numbers of making 1,000 fans. Now, getting to those 1,000 fans, we talked about where you're starting in the 15 fans, and when you get to 30 to 50, and when you get to 100 to 150. Now, 1,000 fans. Now, here's the thing about this, being at 1,000 fans. 1,000 fans, as I said in another, it's consistency. It's a lot of consistency. It's knowing every fan. Like, you have to pretty much know them. Like, this is why you have to know, like, names, phone numbers, everything. Because the only way you can get to this amount is knowing it. Like, and that's the thing that I tell people, this is where this becomes a job. Because you have to know, like, you have to keep a list. Like, you have to know that, I have 100 people here, 200 people here, 400 people here. I have to know these things because you have to be able to make sure that they're going to come support you and that they know, because you don't have the media to say, hey, these are the things they're going to make sure these people know this. Like, for instance, like when Drake comes to town, everyone knows because Live Nation is pushing, everything's pushing for them. You have to be that. You have to write down all the names and make sure you contact them every time you're coming out. You have to make sure you know, like, what are these percentages of how many people are going to come out? Some towns, like, you start knowing these towns. Like, I know if I go to this little town that I have these 200 people that I know, and 150 of them are going to show up more than likely on the average because they don't have much going on. Then I know if I go to a big city, a lot of them have other things going on. So I'm fighting against other shows that are going on. So then I might need to know 500 people to get 100 people to come out. These are the ratios you have to start understanding to get these fans and keep them coming out. And so at 1,000 fans, you're starting to build a catalog of people that you know are going to consistently be a fan every year. Now, the one thing about 1,000 fans that changes everything for everybody, and I always say this is possibly the downfall of my career, but it's amazing thing, but it probably is the thing that made me feel content, was at 1,000 fans, you're doing things. This is where sponsors come involved. And we've talked about sponsors before. When you have 1,000 fans, now you can have less fans and still get sponsors. Of course, you can get sponsors to sponsor shows and tours and stuff like that, especially going through concert, because we help artists to do that and stuff like that. But at 1,000 fans, this is when you can legitimately really get real sponsors that pay monthly and stuff like that. Like, we've had sponsors that pay $12,000 a month. So it's very feasible with 1,000 fans. Like, you're starting to look at places and be like, hey, this is what's going to keep me getting 1,000 fans and moving up, is because these companies are also putting their validation on me the same way I'm putting it on them. I'm getting things that, like, I'm getting products and I'm getting deals that other people want and they see it. This makes more consumers come towards me. If this business is saying I'm valid, then their consumers also are looking at me now. And I'm getting the attention. And this is how I'm growing more than 1,000 fans now, because I'm being in places and I'm getting invited to things that are way bigger. And see, at this point, when you're at 1,000 fans, you're probably if not the most well-known independent artist probably in your state, more than likely. So it's very, like, even in my situation, when I got to this point of actually having this, the artist I was compared to had a deal, had a national deal. So the comparison was there with a person that has a national deal. So it's like, and I'm just independent. So, of course, you're getting all the national shows. And that's one way you're keeping your fans. Your merch actually sells. I wasn't the greatest at this, but this is the people that I know that have heavy merch. Your merch is selling, and it's selling to more people that you just don't even know. You start getting people on your page that are looking for it, and you've never met them in your life. And this is why this also becomes important to keep a catalog of people, of who's who, because as these people come in, you need to know where they are and where they're going to be when you get to their area. So 1,000 fans is like, I don't want to talk anymore about like getting past 10,000 to 100,000 fans, because that then comes with a lot of people that you're going to have involved in this. Like whether you do go get a deal or whether you have a team at that point. And I always tell artists, like, you really don't need a team until this point. Like, you don't need a manager or anything until you get to this point. This is when you start seeing things where you could have a manager and you could have something. Now, people can have managers if they want to. I know managers get mad at me for saying that, but this is the reality of it. Is if you really wanted to grind it out yourself, you could do it. You could get a manager earlier, but as I'm saying, like, you could pretty much figure this out and get to this 1,000 fan level, making great money, and keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is easier than the other routes. The chances of you doing this is way easier than the other routes. This all becomes an idea of understanding who's where and how many times that I need to go around to all these places. Now, at this point, as I said, you're trying to look at what now you're looking at, as you have create a replication process and start understanding who are the people that are your fan, because you will start noticing it might not be, as I've talked about before, it might not be the fan you think it is. It might be a different fan. So then you start understanding commonalities between areas. So then when you start gathering in other areas and you're saying, hey, I'm going to this city, it's a small town just like this small town, or it's a big city like this big city, these are the type of people, this is what they listen to. You start being able to replicate the same patterns of people, and you go like, okay, well, this is what I'm going for. If I know that I'm going to a small town that still listens to radio heavy, then I'm using my radio songs to do that. And that's how I'm gaining fans in those areas, because this is when I'm getting to the amount of fans that I need to know the numbers that I need to split. Like, for instance, if my peak in my main city is 500 fans, let's say I have 500 and I need to get 500 more. That means I need 5 more cities, more than likely, because I'm going to look at the smaller cities before I get to the next big city. So then I'm putting 200 here, 200 here, 100 here. And so I'm doing 200, 3 cities with 300, and my main city, I have 500. Know these numbers, because the way you're going to replicate them after that, it will be similar. So then you start noticing, you start going like, hey, when I get to the next big city, I'm striving for 500 people. When I get to the next small city, I need 100 or I need 200. And start basing it off of population, because then you know how, like, what is the chance of you actually turning those over in those cities. A lot of times, and see, people, that's why I don't like when people say they don't, like, as I said, I don't pop in my own city. A lot of times, they are the people that listen to the exact same stuff. Like, everywhere people listen to the exact same stuff. They listen to radio. You know what I'm saying? So more than likely you have something that sounds like it's been on the radio before. It's in the same vein. It's either rock, country, rap, or something. It's one of these. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a genre on it. You're not making anything that's not already genrenized or whatever. Like, I made that word up, but it's not already a genre. So then people will give it a chance. And then inside that, you just got to find who are those people in those areas. And you're basing it off population. So you have a higher chance in bigger populations, of course. But you want to narrow your idea to be like, yo, like in these smaller places, these people do exist. I just have to go find them. And this is when you start noticing like spots. And you start understanding spots that people frequent. That's where you need to be, because the people that are your fan frequent these areas. You start understanding popular people. You start taking the idea of, hey, if I connect with this popular person in this area, that's what's going to help me get fans, because they kind of have fans because they're an influencer in that area. And if they say I'm valid, then that's what's going to turn over the more fans and keep me getting more fans in these areas. That's why you have to understand who's who in every area and start moving like that. This is also what we talked about in the last video, is like we're starting to use fans from other artists and be like, hey, let's keep them coming from the other artists, because if I'm the 1,000-person fan, man, then at that point, everybody in these other cities knows me. So I become the person that everyone's going to rock with, because they want to come back to my cities. Like, I have multiple of them now. So that's why I become like the strongest in my state at this point. And then you're just now at this point at 1,000 fans, as I said, you can start replicating in other states. Sometimes you have already had to, because it's not enough cities in your state. So like you take, like, for instance, like I'd say like an artist in Utah would have to touch down in a couple other states, because from what I know, like as what I pay attention to as in what I pay attention is into populations. Like if I'm doing this and I'm the artist, I'm looking at Utah and I'm saying Salt Lake, Provo, Ogden, St. George. And I only have 4 shots right here. And I probably need, when I'm getting 1,000, I'm looking at 5, 6, sometimes 7, 8 cities. So I'm going to have to either touch down and say Grand Junction and head to Colorado, or when I go out of St. George, I'm going to Vegas. So I'm looking at both of those. If I'm looking at a place like Colorado, I could figure it out in Colorado alone, because I'm looking at Denver, Springs, Fort Collins, Boulder, Greeley, Pueblo, Grand Junction, and then possibly a mountain city. So I'm looking at 8. And that could be enough. If I'm looking at like Arizona, you know what I'm saying? Like that's like a middle kind of place. It's like you're looking at Phoenix, you're looking at Tucson, you're looking at Flagstaff, you're looking at I know on like the west side there's some other stuff, but you're looking at probably like 5 to 6. The one of the craziest ones that I've noticed lately is like if you're looking at, like, you definitely have to get other places if you're in Nevada, because Nevada is like Reno and Vegas, and it's like the other towns aren't as strong, so it's like Reno and Vegas. But if you're in a place like California, I would say you do have to worry, because LA is going to be the hardest spot for you to ever get, because LA has a lot of music, a lot of big famous people in it, so it's going to be harder to get into venues. Of course, even with concerts, it's going to be harder, because those are places that are tied down and high priced, so it doesn't really cater to the independent artists. And so but then you do have a lot of cities that you can work with: San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco, San Jose. Like you can just go all day in California, and there's tons of different places, and then you can figure it out. But that's at the 1,000 person. So this has been number 4, 1,000 fans. Once again, I'm your host, Sean. This is brought to you by the Concert app. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. The Concert app is in multiple places right now, so make sure if we're in where you're at, you get on some shows or you come to the conferences. And if we're not where you're at, make sure you go ahead and tell everyone to get onto the app, because then we can see the demand and we can get out to those areas. If you have any venues, make sure you tell us, because then that makes it easier for us to get into shows in your area. Music is Day Job. I'm your host, Sean, brought to you by the Concert app.